Dreaming may be wonderful, but being awake, that's where the real wonders are beginning. Growing up becomes an open door to what one can't even imagine yet. In growing up, the flat earth concepts all fall by the wayside. They did so for many and were forgotten. The Flat Earth Club attracts almost no one anymore. The Epicycles, too, don't excite scientists anymore. It took a long time, though, in astronomy for the Epicycles theory to be laid aside that Ptolemy had invented. With its streaming of epicycles, science had kept itself in chains for 1,500 years. We now laugh about the silliness of believing in effects for which no cause actually exists or can exist. The epicycles were invented to twist the astrophysical evidence to support the doctrine that all orbits in the heavens must follow the path of perfect circles, because the circle is a perfect geometric form fit for the heavens that are obviously perfect. It took humanity 1,500 years to break itself out of the box of this doctrine. A step towards freedom was taken when Johannes Kepler discovered the principles of gravity and its interaction with mass and velocity in orbital systems. The door was opened by this for the acceptance of elliptical orbits. The dreaming about epicycles suddenly ended. It ended regardless of the fact that many great men in astronomy had sung the Epicycles song and had based their life work on it, which thereby turned out to be incorrect. The laws that Kepler had discovered match perfectly the orbital characteristics of the planets. With this, the old doctrines were scrapped. Astronomers were suddenly interested in discovering how things really work. At least some were. Some remained dreaming, of course, even while in dreams nothing ever gets resolved. For example, people try to apply Kepler's laws to the observed motions of the stars in the galaxy in terms of the stars orbiting the galactic center. But the evidence doesn't match Kepler's laws. The evidence is so far off as if the laws don't apply at all. People get stuck with this paradox and fall back into dreaming. This time they dream of dark matter as epicycles in order to make the impossible appear plausible. A few people who are not dreaming, however, simply ask, what laws do apply that produce the evidence we see? That's how Kepler got out of the epicycles. He stopped dreaming. He woke up. Just imagine what we can do when we, too, wake up. A totally different scene unfolds in the galactic landscape when we look at it with open eyes. Since the force of gravity diminishes with the square of the distance, it is too weak a force to support orbital dynamics on the galactic scale. This means that orbiting stars are only possible in dreams. In the real world, it is physically impossible for the weakest force in the universe, the gravitational force, to keep a hold on a star across 50,000 light-years distance, moving at a velocity of 250 kilometers per second. The immense gravity that would accomplish such a gravitational hold isn't physically possible, and what isn't possible is also not happening. Nor is the principle of gravitational dynamics reflected in the measured movements of the stars in the galaxy. This tells an alert person that we see totally different principles expressed. The motion of the planets clearly reflects the dynamics of gravity-bound orbital systems, while the motion of stars are clearly the result of a different effect. This simply means that the galactic system is not a gravity-bound system. Its characteristic reflects the principle of the plasma-motivated system. For it, different principles and different laws apply. One of the pioneering explorers of a plasma-motivated galactic system was the Swedish electrical engineer, plasma physicist, and winner of the 1970 Nobel Prize in Physics, Hannes Alfvén. When one applies the principle of electrodynamics to the theoretical motion of stars in the galaxy, the predicted motions match the observations rather well in principle. Here, two principles apply. One principle tells us that the stars in a galaxy do not orbit the galactic center, but are moved by the rotating electromagnetic currents that flow within the spiral arms. Another principle tells us that the entire galaxy rotates as a single unit by the electromagnetic force of the galactic primer fields. It rotates by an effect similar to that of the homopolar motor. By this effect, the galaxy completes one revolution in 220 to 360 million years, with the central bar rotating more than twice as fast, in the range of only 100 to 120 million years per revolution. This wider perception opens up a whole new way of looking at the universe. Isn't it fun being awake? Who wants to be dreaming anymore of impossible epicycles like dark matter and orbiting stars? Some do, of course. Within the box of constricting doctrines, cosmic science has twisted itself into knots. That's sad. No, that's outright embarrassing, isn't it? It's not a secret that the force of gravity has an extremely limited reach, as it diminishes with the square of the distance. Kepler knew this. It is embarrassing to see that in our advanced age, mainstream science forces itself to regard the entire universe as being empty and organized by the weakest universal force that exists, with the shortest reach. It has narrowed its perception into impossible dreaming about the nature of the universe. It is racing us backwards with dreaming around a concept of the nature of the universe that does not actually exist, which we know cannot exist, according to what we have discovered already hundreds of years ago, which we routinely utilize in planning spaceflight trajectories. Cosmology has become a contradiction thereby. We deny what we know. We deny ourselves. We play with epicycles again as in ancient times, to intentionally misrepresent the evidence. Why would an awake person devote its life to this dreaming, when reality is much more exciting and amazing. Plasma is real, powerful, everywhere, and opens up infinite possibilities. It beckons us to move with what we already know. It is lots of fun to be alive and to be awake, isn't it? The dream of the gravity-only universe is too small for an intelligent person. It ignores the actually operating forces that shape the universe, where the real fun begins in discovering. Just imagine the possibilities when you open your mind to considering the electric force that is inherent in plasma. This force is 39 orders of magnitude stronger than gravity and is everywhere evident, because plasma is everywhere. Plasma is so vastly abundant in the universe that 99.999% of the mass of the universe is plasma with an electric potential. This means that 99.999% of the mass of the universe is interacting with the electric force in numerous ways, with amazing effects that are more exciting than what we can imagine in dreaming. It is the greatest tragedy of our time that leading-edge science ignores 99.999% of the universe as if it didn't exist, simply because it falls outside the box of imposed doctrines. The plasma evidence tells us that the galaxy is not self-powered, but is actively powered by intergalactic plasma streams flowing into it. Our galaxy is functionally a part of a node point of intergalactic plasma streams. The node point terminates electromagnetic plasma structures where unique primer fields are formed that focus highly concentrated plasma onto our galaxy. With this plasma, the hundreds of billions of stars in our galaxy are powered. How enormous the flowing plasma stream is that our galaxy taps into is evident by the sheer size of the plasma domes over the center of the galaxy that are a part of the intergalactic system. They are an inherent part of the magnetic primer fields that focus highly concentrated plasma onto the galactic center. This principle can be replicated in the laboratory. The equivalent cosmic features have recently been photographed by NASA. The features extend above and below our galaxy for 25,000 light years in either direction. That's where the plasma is concentrated, that flows through the galaxy, that also lights up our sun. Discoveries of this sort poke major holes through the walls of the constricted box of mainstream science. The perception that we gain thereby help us to advance the way we recognize the critical Ice Age timing. This advance, all by itself, has enormous effects far outside the realm of cosmology. It affects economics, politics, and the way we regard one another as human beings. The man-made global warming doctrine is a politically motivated stream that is fast becoming history on the path of advancing discoveries. The Global Warming Club sees its membership shrinking. The doctrine lacks the necessary foundation in truth for it to hold its standing among an increasingly alert society. Carbon-14 measurements that reflect solar activity intensity show with dramatic clarity that the global warming of the Earth from the 1700s onward was not caused by humanity, but was caused by the massive upramping in solar activity that the measured historic carbon-14 evidence tells us of. This single discovery opens up a whole new dimension in climate science and vast new potential freedoms for humanity. With the solar upramping being not man-made, because nothing that we can do on Earth affects the sun, the vilification of humanity as a climate villain has therefore nothing to stand on. This single discovery has the power to uplift the future of humanity and end all the man-made global warming-related holocausts. Actually, the man-made global warming doctrine has never had a wide popular support in the scientific community that the media parades. Tens of thousands of concerned scientists from the scientific community around the world have protested again and again and again against the climate doctrine's false assumption. They have protested in the form of a wide range of organized efforts and petition projects aimed at ending the deadly global warming politics for which science has been abused, which have marred the face of science. This means that the actual consensus in the sciences is monumental in opposition against the man-made global warming doctrine and against the politics that drive the doctrine as a war against humanity. Because the solar activity has diminished again from 1998 onward, which has ended the 200 years warming period, the political song has been changed to man-made climate change. But this song is fading too, with the Earth getting continuously colder. The membership of the Man-Made Global Warming Club has begun to shrink. Truthful science invariably has its day, as reality gradually asserts its imperative. As we grow up, both in body and spirit and in alertness, advanced discoveries tend to uplift what we call our culture, even justice. The tallest principles, of course, take a little longer to discover, but we tend to get there. This is also evident in the sciences, where great potentials exist for amazing discoveries which invariably affect even politics. Many a dream with long-standing acclaim is fading into oblivion with the awakening of humanity to the truth. One of the fading dreams is the dream of dark energy. It is said that the sunspots on the sun appear almost black because we see dark energy streaming out of the sun. In real terms, the sunspots are dark because the sun is empty inside. There is no such phenomenon possible as dark energy that hides the sunlight from shining through, which we would see if the sun was internally heated. This means that what we see is not an illusion, It is really happening. The sun is really dark inside. When eruptions occur on the face of the sun that rip chunks out of the photosphere, which exposes the layers below, we see that there is nothing there to be seen below the surface. The evidence tells us that all the energy that is produced on the sun is produced on its surface. Wherever dark spots appear on the sun, the photosphere with its electric surface reactions is disrupted. The sun is dark inside because it is necessarily empty. The sunspots tell us that the entire theory of the sun as an internally heated hydrogen fusion furnace is no more valid than a dream. Entire fields of evidence prove that the theory is false, a dream that is ending. One of the measured evidence is that the sun's mass density is 1,000 times too low for the sun to be a hydrogen gas sphere. Just look at the comparison. In comparing Saturn with Jupiter that has twice the volume has also twice the mass density. In comparison with Jupiter, the Sun, however, has 1,000 times larger volume, for which its mass density should be 1,000 times larger as well, because of the greater gas compression resulting from the greater amassed gravity. But this is not the case. The Sun is 1,000 times too light in comparison with the gas sphere of Jupiter. That's where the dream of the hydrogen sun theory begins to break down. It's not that the measurements are wrong. The model is wrong. If the Sun is recognized to be a plasma sphere, then its mass density is well within the range of what one would expect for it. That the gas-sun theory is increasingly becoming a dead issue comes to light when one compares the Sun with the giant star Uy Scuti. The facts surrounding the star Uy Scuti renders the hydrogen gas model an impossible dream. The star Uy Scuti is known to be 5 billion times larger in volume than our Sun is, but is believed to contain only 10 to 20 times the mass of the Sun. This means that the mass of this star is so thinly spread that the giant star is practically a vacuum, as one researcher has noted. Ironically, with its minuscule puff of mass, the giant star Uy Scuti outshines our Sun 340,000-fold, as we see it here from 9,500 light years away. Do these facts sound impossible under the hydrogen gas Sun model? Of course they do, because this star can't possibly exist under the internal fusion model. A hydrogen sphere of the enormous size of Uy Scuti is not possible to exist. The mass of such a gas sphere would be billions of times greater than it is. Its gravity would be so great that its atoms would be crushed long before the star became as big as it is. A gas sphere that is nearly 2.4 billion kilometers across is simply not possible to exist in the real world. It would encapsulate all the inner planets of the solar system and parts of the asteroid belt. And all that is deemed to contain a mere 10 solar masses. that streaming in the extreme. However, as a plasma sun, the existence of a giant star the size of Epicycles is possible, and its immense luminosity, with its minuscule mass, is likewise possible. This means that what we see is a plasma sun. Plasma is a mix of free-flowing electrons and protons that interact with the electric force that is 39 orders of magnitude stronger than gravity. The protons carry a positive electric charge, by which they repel each other. The electrons carry a negative charge, by which they become attracted to the protons. But before the electrons can latch on to the protons, a strong nuclear force repels them. By this principle, the electrons are drawn into an endless dance around the protons in plasma. The field effect of the electrons' dance offsets to some degree the protons' mutual repulsion. If the electron density is high, the offsetting effect is high. In this case, extremely large mass densities can be achieved, as in the case of the brown dwarf stars. Brown dwarf stars are roughly the size of Jupiter, but contain 20 to 75 times as much mass as Jupiter. A plasma star with high electron density can achieve this extreme mass density. The mass density of the Earth, with its large iron core, in comparison, has a mere 4 times greater mass density than that of Jupiter. With up to 75 times greater density, the brown dwarfs may be the densest concentrations of mass in the universe. When the mass of a plasma star increases beyond the threshold point, the resulting gravitational pressure causes the much lighter electrons to migrate to the surface, which leaves the protons at the core more able to repel each other. The process also creates an electron-dense shell around the plasma sphere at its surface, where electric interaction occurs with external plasma streams, by which the plasma sun becomes a brilliant sphere emitting light. The end result is that a large plasma sun is least massive at its core, and has its greatest mass density right at the surface. For this reason our sun has the extremely low mass density that it has for its size, and why supergiant stars like Epicycles can exist and operate with an extremely low overall mass density. Under the plasma model, looking at Epicycles, we see exactly what one would expect to see for a super-large plasma star. This means that the large star is nearly empty inside. A gas sphere, in comparison, has its greatest density at its core by gravitational compression, and its lowest density on its surface. This is the opposite, in principle, of that of a plasma sphere. These dramatic facts render the entire saga of the gas-sun theory an impossible dream. While the club of those who still cling to the old dream has a wide membership, the membership numbers appear to be dwindling, as the facts are shining through the facade of the old doctrine. The only stellar model that matches the observed evidence that we see expressed in space on any scale is the plasma sun model. A plasma sun, as I said before, is a sphere of plasma with sufficient mass that its electrons, under gravitational pressure, migrate to the surface, where they form an electron-dense sheath around the plasma sphere, which interacts with interstellar plasma that surrounds the Sun. In the interaction, atomic elements are synthesized by a type of plasma fusion. The highly energized, newly synthesized atomic elements emit the sunlight that we see, which radiates the generated solar energy. The mix of synthesized atomic elements is so rich that their combined emission spectra result in a seamless band of colors. No other sun than the plasma sun can produce the seamless band of color that originates from the sun. The spectrum for a hydrogen sun would be extremely meager, regardless of the solar intensity. But this is not what we see. We see a color-rich, seamless spectrum. The evidence for the hydrogen sun theory is so consistently non-existing that even the sunlight doesn't support the theory, which renders the gas-sun theory merely a dream, a popular dream perhaps, but also a fading dream. When we look at the sun with what we now know, we see no longer the mythical spots of dark energy sprinkled across its face. We know the truth now about the dark sunspots. We know that what we see in them is that the sun is empty inside, because that's the only way in which it can exist. Isn't real science a lot more fun than the mythical science dreams, and worthwhile to grow up for? What about the theorized giant black holes that no one has actually ever seen, much less photographed? What we see here is a simulated view of an imagined black hole in front of the Large Magellanic Cloud. The artwork is designed to illustrate the theorized effect of gravitational lensing, which, if it did exist, would be caused by a hypothetical high-mass black hole object, if such an object would exist, with the entire scene imagined to be viewed from outside of our galaxy, with the galaxy in the background and the Large Magellanic Cloud in front of it and behind the black hole. What is shown here is the theorized result of the theorized distortion of the view of the Large Magellanic Cloud. It is showing it being torn apart into two concentric arcs, with the Milky Way disk in the background being likewise distorted into an arc. The two Magellanic Clouds, located outside of our galaxy, appear rather uninteresting when seen from Earth. The artwork of the black holes is required to dramatize something that no one has actually seen, nor can prove that it exists, which would be seen as illustrated if the theorized effect was real. What we see here is the modern version of the historic flat Earth perception. Black holes are required as the theorized end result of expired stars that have used up their fuel and collapsed, and have then exploded into a supernova explosion, leaving in their wake a cloud of neutrons that condense by gravity into a neutron star that is less than 100 kilometers wide. Most large mass stars are deemed to end their existence as neutron stars, rather than as white dwarfs that, like our Sun, are deemed to burn out without exploding. Since no one has ever seen a black hole star, theoretical models were invented to detect their existence. One of the models is that of the pulsar, or quasar. It is deemed that neutron stars gain a high angular momentum by their condensation, which causes them to spin extremely fast, which in turn causes them to emit pulses of radiation, ranging from gamma-wave radiation to radio waves. The Crab Nebula, for example, contains a pulsar that pulses 30.2 times per second. But here questions arise for which no rational answers exist in support of the model. How can a 30-kilometer wide sphere of neutrons sustain a spin rate of 1,800 rpm and not fly apart by centrifugal force? And how is a sphere of neutrons that has no electromagnetic properties able to emit the enormous pulses of electromagnetic radiation, so strong that they are detected on Earth across 6,500 light years? Are we looking at epicycles again to support impossible theoretical models, as did Ptolemy in astronomy? Are we dreaming again? Of course, the pulsars are real, but aren't there simple causes possible for them? In the plasma universe, no impossible exotic causes are required to produce the observed pulsing effects. The principle can even be explored in the laboratory. When plasma streams are flowing towards a sun with primer fields, the magnetic effect of the flowing plasma turns the plasma backwards under a magnetic confinement dome under which the plasma is concentrated. If the pressure under the dome exceeds the magnetic confinement strength, a jet of plasma breaks through the weakest point, draining some of the compressed plasma explosively, whereby the plasma pressure becomes reduced until the confinement is re-established. Once the plasma confinement is re-established, the plasma pressure builds up again, whereby the cycle repeats itself. Any type of pulsating is possible by this simple principle. Even the extremely rapid pulsing that has been observed in cosmic space, up to 700 pulses per second. The high pulse rate of 700 pulses per second, or 700 stellar revolutions per second, renders the concept of rotating black hole stars extremely impossible. It defies scientific credibility to imagine a massive object, tens of kilometers wide, spinning at 42,000 rpm, being held together by nothing more than gravity, the weakest force in the universe. Another related fact that equally denies the credibility of the fast-rotating black holes theory is the observed fact that the pulse rates themselves are periodically changing. This would imply that the star's rotational speed is changing. It is theorized that this is caused by star quakes that alter the diameter of a black hole star that would thereby alter its rate of rotation. That's a nice theory, but is it rational? It is far more rational to acknowledge that simple known plasma phenomena are involved that can be replicated in the laboratory, which naturally reflect changes in changing plasma density conditions. No star quakes are required here. It is far more rational to recognize large-scale plasma flow phenomena as the cause for the observed large cosmic phenomena. Isn't that what we see here? We see pulsating jets breaking out from the magnetic confinement structure for the hyperactive stars, as in the case of the Vela pulsar shown here, that is located in a dense field of atomic material surrounding the hyperactive star system, for which portions of its primal fields are faintly visible. The interaction of the fast-moving plasma in the jet pulses that are visible here with the surrounding atomic elements causes the intense type of gamma-ray emissions quite naturally that have been observed. No magic is required for this to happen in the plasma universe. We see the same happening at the Grab Nebula. We see an intensely active star that creates large volumes of atomic material around itself that glows in the plasma streams flowing through the system, generating a wide spectrum of light. We also see the star's gamma-ray emission at the center of it all. We see the gamma-ray emissions at a location where the large primal fields would be located. In other words, we see simple plasma effects happening here, though on the larger cosmic scale. Shouldn't we expect to see a few large-scale plasma effects occurring in our galaxy of potentially 400 billion star systems, including some major ones? Why then are we resorting to imagining exotic black holes for which no physical foundation actually exists? Are we looking at epicycles again to make the impossible seem plausible? Why do we dream exotic, impossible dreams and ignore the known principles that can even be replicated in the laboratory? Shouldn't we end this dreaming? It makes no sense to even dream of black holes, neutron stars, forged in stellar explosions. It is known or knowable that stars, which are spheres of plasma, cannot explode. It is further known or knowable that free neutrons are not able to exist that would forge the neutron stars, that only electrons and protons exist as free basic particles. Neutrons cannot exist outside the atomic nucleus in which they are created. Neutron stars are a paradox, therefore. Neutrons are generated by the energetic transformation of protons in the environment of an atomic nucleus. When neutrons split off from the atomic nucleus in which they are created, which happens massively in nuclear power reactors, the separated neutrons quickly decay back to being protons. With this, the entire theory of the black holes falls apart. Nevertheless, the impossible theory of the black holes continues. The theory continues because, whether neutron stars are possible or not, a number of cosmic theories require large concentrations of mass to rationalize concepts that are naturally impossible, such as the concept of galaxies made up of gravitationally bound orbiting stars. For exotic theories, exotic phenomena are required. Exotic theories let scientists escape from reality, as Ptolemy had done when he invented, in ancient time, his theory of epicycles and the equant to rationalize the dream of planets being organized in the heavens in perfect circular orbits. When the neutron star theory was invented, it was reasoned that neutrons, by being electrically neutral, can become packed so tightly that a third of the mass of an exploding star will condense by gravity into a tiny sphere of a few kilometers across, retaining in this small space a third of the star's original gravity. The resulting gravity that a neutron star is deemed to amass is theorized to be so enormous that no light can escape from it, which neutrons cannot emit anyway, and that all surrounding light becomes absorbed by the star's enveloping gravity, so that a black sphere appears when seen from the outside. That's another nice dream, isn't it? Exotic tales have been spun around this particular dream. It is believed that the gravity of the neutron star is so immense that its visible connection with the universe is broken by its so-called event horizon. The neutron star is deemed to appear as a black sun on the outside, and the universe is deemed to appear as a black void from the inside of the black sun. But is this really possible? Is this what really happens? It should be noted that a neutron star, if it miraculously could exist, would exert only about a third of the gravity of the original gas star from which it would have been born. The neutron star's gravitational reach would thereby be rather small in cosmic terms, smaller than that of the original star. But that's not what the theory sees. It imagines immense massive gravitational effects that are inherently physically impossible to be caused by gravity. Gravity does not have the electromagnetic properties to affect light, which is electromagnetic radiation, but plasma has been demonstrated to have such an effect, which is erroneously attributed to gravity. Every star is surrounded by a dense sphere of plasma. including our Sun. It is theoretically possible for our Sun to shift the light of light close to it. The effect is deemed to be caused by the Sun's gravity. But can gravity bend the propagation of light? It is theorized that the effect can be caused indirectly by gravity affecting the physics of the surrounding space. It has been theorized that the consistency of space becomes bent by a massive object, so that when light becomes propagated through the bent space, light becomes bent with it. It is claimed that the effect has been verified for light passing near the Sun. Observations were conducted in 1919 by Arthur Eddington during total eclipse conditions by observing stars as close to the rim of the Sun as possible. It is believed that the result supports the amount predicted by Einstein's general relativity theory. But was the effect, as inconclusive as it was, caused by gravity? A dense sphere of plasma surrounds the Sun that is several times wider than the diameter of the Sun itself and extends far beyond the visible corona. What if the plasma sphere were optical glass? It would most certainly distort the propagation of light. Well, plasma has similar properties, especially near the surface of the Sun, where it is also densely packed with ions and atomic elements. Was the light-bending effect caused by gravity then, as it is claimed, or was it caused by plasma? To answer this question, it needs to be asked if we have encountered similar effects in space, of light bending around dense plasma objects. In this image, NASA's Hubble Space Telescope shows a lensing effect, which is deemed to be caused by gravity. We see a luminous red galaxy distorting the light from a much more distant blue galaxy, whose image is distorted into a ring around the red galaxy. What we see here is not simulated, but is it a gravitational effect, as it is regarded in mainstream science? What we see here is extremely unlikely to be a gravitational effect. It is far more likely that we are looking down the axis of an intergalactic plasma stream, which powers the red galaxy in the foreground and is linked to the blue galaxy behind it, so that it is the intergalactic plasma stream that channels the photons of light from the blue galaxy around the red galaxy and its plasma halo. Gravity, which is the weakest force in the universe that diminishes with the square of the distance, cannot have the enormous effect shown here, across the galactic distances reaching far outward from the hub of the galaxy. However, plasma flowing in space, which acts with the electric force that is 39 orders of magnitude stronger than gravity, and is not affected by distance, and does affect light with the potential to produce the result that we see. Most likely, we see a plasma effect. Plasma is said to be the blood of the universe, hence its name. It exists everywhere in space. It is sad to note that mainstream science pretends that it doesn't exist. Thus, mainstream science erroneously relates all observed cosmic effects to the weakest force of the universe, the force of gravity, which doesn't have far-reaching effects and ignores the rest that exists. According to researchers at the Los Alamos National Laboratory, more than 99.999% of the mass of the universe exists in the form of plasma, instead of in the form of atomic elements. Both have gravitational effects, while the electric effect in plasma is infinitely greater. It is reasonable to assume, then, that light, which is electromagnetic in nature, can be significantly affected by fields of electrically charged plasma particles in cosmic space on their long path of millions of light years between galaxies. This means that whenever cosmic observations are encountered that appear to be caused by gravitational lensing, the observed effect is far more likely the result of plasma lensing. Streams of plasma are streams of the most basic form of mass. They are invisible but massive. When one looks down the axis of a long plasma stream, as in the image shown here, one can actually observe the principles of large plasma flow structures evident, as they have been observed in laboratory experiments. The principles are strikingly apparent in plasma flow experiments conducted at the Los Alamos National Laboratory in the USA. Plasma is invisible. It is mass that one cannot see, because the size of its proton is 100,000 times smaller than the smallest atom, and the size of its electrons is 1,000 times smaller again. But the effects are visible by the dynamics of the plasma. In laboratory experiments, the presence of plasma was made artificially visible by placing atomic elements in the reaction chambers. When densely concentrated plasma interacts with atomic elements, the atomic elements emit light. By the same principle, the experimental results can also become visible in space, which verifies the principle. This means that numerous concepts of black holes phenomena will one day be correctly recognized to further prove the plasma universe theory, for which ever more evidence is becoming discovered. It has recently been theorized that the movement of massive objects in space, such as stars, create disturbances in the plenum of space-time that ripple across the universe with the speed of light and become detectable across vast distances. The effect is theorized to be caused by the force of gravity affecting the plenum of space. The effect has been termed the gravity wave. The recently detected pattern of a burst of gravity waves has been theorized to be the result of two massive black holes on the order of 30 solar masses each, bound in gravitational orbits in a manner of a binary system. The theory has it that the massive gravity of the orbiting black holes creates revolving ripples in the plenum of space. The theory further stipulates that the orbits decay rapidly, with which the black holes spiral towards each other ever more closely. It is theorized that the black holes merge and their disturbances in the plenum of space merge likewise. When the sequence ends, there will be but one black hole remaining at the original center of gravity. According to the detected gravitational waves, the entire sequence unfolds in half a second. It is further theorized that by the violent collision, immense magnetic fields will form that throw out jet streams of matter that emit a gigantic shower of gamma radiation. After the merger ends, the plenum of space becomes quiet again, and the wave recedes into the distance. That's the theory. The resulting gravitational waves have been measured simultaneously at two different locations. The method for observation is illustrated in Figure 1 and 2. A light beam is split into two separate paths, shown in red and blue, which are recombined and calibrated to precisely match, shown in Figure 1. In Figure 2, the yellow gravitational wave changes the propagation time for the red light path slightly. The resulting phase shift becomes a measurement for the gravitational wave. The light path for the instrument at Hanford is 4 kilometers long. The faintest disturbance becomes detectable on this basis. The event that has been observed is believed to have occurred roughly 1 billion light-years distant. But was the disturbance really caused by gravitational gyrations? The theorized gamma-ray burst, which occurred simultaneously with the disturbance waves, suggests that the collision theory is true. But let's take a closer look. Can the collision of two spheres of neutrons, with the neutrons being electrically neutral, generate immense magnetic fields, which can only form with flowing electric currents that neutrons cannot facilitate? Here the theory breaks down, as it defies the most basic laws of physics. Likewise, it is impossible for colliding neutrons to emit gamma-ray light, which is electromagnetic radiation that can only be emitted from atomic elements. We are looking at a dream landscape here. And what about the theory of the collision itself? Is it really possible for two objects, each 30 times the mass of the Sun, spaced 350 kilometers apart in an orbit, to spiral towards each other and then merge, all in the time frame of a second? The assumption that this happens violates all known principles of gravity-held orbital dynamics. We are looking at another dream landscape here. In the real world, when a space satellite is placed into an orbit, it remains in that orbit indefinitely, except for its kinetic energy loss by cosmic friction, which causes the orbit to diminish minutely over long periods of time measured in years. To compensate for the lost kinetic energy caused by cosmic friction, variable spacecraft are occasionally reboosted. For two objects of 30 solar masses each to spiral into each other in half a second would require a gargantuous loss of kinetic energy on a scale that is physically impossible. The numerous paradoxes that are inherent in the black hole's merger theory impels the need to look for a different cause that is actually physically possible for what has been observed. Such a cause can be readily found in plasma physics, where all the large-scale events are happening. It has been noted in high-energy experiments that highly concentrated plasma streams form a ring of 56 self-aligned filaments. The 56 filaments subsequently combine into a ring of 28 filaments. The ring structure of the plasma streams, as has been noticed, is also visible in space under the requisite circumstances. It has also been noted in experiments that the ring of filaments further combine from 28 into 14 filaments, then into 7 and 3, and so on. The sequence suggests that eventually the streams combine into one. It stands to reason that separate plasma streams, such as the long interplanetary streams or even the intergalactic streams, can combine into one. Since plasma streams, in whatever form they appear, are electromagnetically self-aligned and self-rotating structures, it stands to reason that merging plasma streams become likewise rotating twisters that by their mutually attracting nature combine into one. This means that the plasma twisters are typically fast-moving events of short duration. This also means that the gravitational wave observation were not caused by the impossible phenomenon of spiraling compact objects, but may have been caused instead by large-scale twisting plasma events. Twisting plasma streams can create the rotating patterns shown here, with the black hole position marking their cross-section. Thus, rotating patterns would be normal and natural for actions forced by the electromagnetic force that is 39 orders of magnitude stronger than gravity. In this case, the gravitational wave theory would actually stand as an item of proof in support of the plasma universe theory, since nothing but plasma flowing in space can produce the massive effects that are theorized from the evidence, and have been erroneously attributed to the black holes that are physically not possible, including the spiraling merger that is not possible either. But why would we need to even go as far as to theorize merging plasma streams, though these are actually possible, when far simpler solutions exist that produce the theorized phenomenon of gravitational waves? What about star collisions? Wouldn't that cause some ripples, like stars merging by collision? Single star systems appear to be the minority in our galaxy. It is suggested that most star systems incorporate 2 or 3 stars, even up to 5 stars in some rare cases. The existence of multiple star systems seems to prove that even plasma-powered stars can merge and capture each other gravitationally, thereby creating systems of multiple stars orbiting their common gravitational center. It is also possible, though much more rarely, for 2 stars to approach each other dead center and not miss, but collide and merge into a single larger star. A collision of two stars like our Sun at a closing speed of 500 kilometers per second, according to the typical motion of stars in the galaxy, could take roughly 1 second to be accomplished. The plasma stars wouldn't explode by collision. The collision would cause some major shock effects in the plasma within and around them as they combine, which would likely cause the same type of gravitational disturbance that the gravitational wave observatories have seen. It is sad to see that science has locked itself into a dream box, where the weakest force of the universe, that diminishes with the square of the distance, is deemed to cover everything, and is even able to cause rippling waves in the plenum of space that can be detected across a distance of 1 billion light years. In addition, the strongest force of the universe, the electromagnetic force, that is exerted by 99.999% of the mass of the universe, is deemed not to exist as cosmic plasma itself is deemed not to exist. Thus, science literally hides the truth it already knows by claiming that reality itself doesn't exist. And so, science hides from itself the greatest challenge of all times, the Ice Age challenge, that is already unfolding as a natural effect of the dynamics of the plasma universe. However, the ignorance that is presently claimed so vehemently is not inherent in the nature of our humanity. The ignorance can be laid aside. It is well understood that neutrons do not exist naturally. They exist nowhere in isolated form. They are the product of a process that creates the environment that enables their existence. Neutrons do not exist anywhere in the universe outside of this environment. This environment is created with the investment of energy. A neutron is formed inside an atomic nucleus when two protons are forced to join there. For this joining, a large amount of energy is required. There exist only two basic atomic particles in the universe, the electron and the proton. Both have an electric quality with which they interact. The electron has a negative electric quality, and the proton, which is 1800 times larger, has a positive quality. Particles of unlike quality are attracted to one another by the electric force, and particles of like quality repel one another. The entire universe is built on this principle. The electric force is an immense force. It is believed to be 39 orders of magnitude stronger than gravity. It is the creative force of the universe. By this force, electrons are attracted to protons, but before they can latch onto one another, the electron is repelled at close distances by an even stronger base of nuclear force. Once repelled, it becomes attracted again, by which the dance begins anew. When the dance is highly energetic, the dance of the electron around the proton effectively forms a shell of its presence around the proton, by which an atom is born. In this case, it is the simplest atom that exists, which is the hydrogen atom. Of course, we also need bigger atoms and lots of different types of them to have the amazing universe that we have. For all of these bigger types of atoms to exist, we need a bigger nucleus. We need more protons packed together to create the larger nuclei. The tight packaging, however, shouldn't be possible because all protons repel each other with the electric force. The electric repelling force of protons against one another is immense. It takes an immense kinetic force to counteract the electric repelling force. When the joining is accomplished, the joining energy transforms one of the protons into a neutron. The neutron has its electric charge neutralized in the process. It also acts like a type of nuclear glue that enables the attachment of yet another proton to it. The fuzzy glue effect creates the basis for very large atomic nuclei to exist. The uranium atom, for example, has 92 protons to coexist in its nucleus, held together with the glue of 146 neutrons. The resulting extremely large nucleus enables the dance of 92 electrons organized in 7 layers of complex arrangements of shells of orbital spaces. When this large atom is broken apart in such a manner that not all of its neutrons are required anymore as glue, the excess neutron splits off. The release of the neutron also releases the original binding energy that creates the neutron. The released neutron thereby decays back to becoming a proton again. A neutron exists dynamically as a part of a nuclear force-held package that provides the environment for its existence. Outside this environment, it lacks the force that shapes it. It becomes a proton. Stable forms of unbound neutrons simply have no basis for existing, and what can't exist doesn't exist. Thus, the phenomenon of entire stars made up of isolated neutrons is not possible. Consequently, it doesn't exist. The neutron star is only possible in dreams. Here, the neutron paradox begins. Protons are constructed of subatomic particles called quarks. Quarks exist in 2 flavors, often referred to as up quarks and down quarks. The up quarks have a positive electric quality, and the down quarks a negative electric quality. The combination of 2 up quarks and 1 down quark gives the proton its positive electric charge, illustrated as +1. The electron in turn is made up of a tiny subatomic particle called the lepton, which carries its negative charge, or negative potential, illustrated as -1. When a fast-moving proton collides with another proton inside an atomic element, the collision creates a binding force that alters one of the quarks in one of the colliding protons. It converts one of the up quarks into a down quark that cancels out the overall electric potential. By this latching effect, that cancels out its electric potential, a proton becomes a neutron. It remains a neutron for as long as it remains attached to the proton, held in place by the strong nuclear force. When this attachment is broken, the basis for the existence of the neutron ends. The neutron paradox begins with the denial of this fact. It begins with the imagining of magical forces and magical conditions with which mainstream science attempts to rationalize observed cosmic phenomena that are created by electrons and protons existing in cosmic space in unbound form. The unbound form constitutes 99.999% of the mass of the universe, which is strongly interacting in space with the electric force that is 39 orders of magnitude stronger than gravity. The theory of the neutron star is required to rationalize concepts of the universe in which gravity, the weakest force of the universe, is deemed to be the sole governing force and the sole cause for everything. The neutron star concept is imagined as a fudge factor, even though no basis for the concept actually exists or can exist according to what is known. The resulting commitment to the impossible creates a paradox. It creates a paradox of denial, and more than that, it creates ever more convoluted paradoxes upon the basic paradox of denial. Some are also obviously paradoxes. Paradox 1. Mainstream science stands in defiance of the basic fact that what can't exist doesn't exist. Thus astrophysical science is dreaming of entire stars existing composed of isolated neutrons. The dream defies the recognized theoretical impossibility that is well understood. That's a paradox, isn't it? From this basic paradox, other paradoxes are conjured up. Paradox 2. Science imagines that neutron stars of immense density are possible, with such an immense gravity that they effectively bend space in a manner that they become invisible thereby, and the universe becomes invisible from them, so that no light can cross between the two. The immense mass density of the neutron stars is theorized to be possible because the neutron lacks the electric repulsion that limits the density of atomic forms and the mass of stars. The imagined superlarge mass of the neutron star is required as a fudge factor for the recognition of cosmic features that are deemed to require large concentrations of mass, such as the theorized black holes at the center of galaxies that are said to have the gravitational density that far exceeds what can result from a massed atomic element. The impossible neutron star is imagined, while science stands in denial of cosmic plasma physics and its known principles that cause a wide range of mass density to exist naturally. That's a paradox, isn't it? With this paradox of defiance, mainstream science locks itself into a box of dreams. The neutron paradox has been created to enable this denial of the truth. Paradox 3. Likewise, it is a recognized fact that gravity-bound orbital systems do not decay, unless their kinetic energy is diminished by an external cause, such as by cosmic drag. In defiance of this widely recognized fact, astrophysical science dreams that fast-orbiting black holes, with 30 times the mass of the Sun, have their kinetic energy drained away in half a second, so that they can spiral into each other. There is no physical cause possible for this gigantic loss of kinetic energy to occur in the fraction of a second. In this paradox, the neutron stars are imagined to be exempt from the laws of orbital dynamics. The exemption is imagined in order to rationalize the observed phenomena, even while the observed effects that are attributed to neutron stars are inherently natural in the plasma universe, which, however, is deemed not to exist. Here again, the paradox allows an imaginary escape from facing reality. Paradox 4. In dreaming of the impossible, science also imagines the neutron star to have a magical electric quality, which it cannot have as an electrically neutral mass. The neutron star is imagined to generate an immense magnetic field that powers jet streams flowing from the star, all in defiance of the basic fact that magnetic phenomena are generated by the movement of electric currents that an electrically neutral mass cannot and does not facilitate. Paradox 5. Science also imagines black holes, neutron stars, to emit pulses of immense radiation as the result of their axial rotation, in the order of 1 pulse per rotation. Since nothing but gravity is deemed to escape the event horizon of the black hole, the mass of the star within it must necessarily rotate with an impossibly extreme mass eccentricity to be able to generate rotating gravity pulses that act on the surrounding materials with effects that are visible across the galaxy in the form of gamma ray light, the most intense form of light. This is the theory of the pulsar. The theory, again, is invented to rationalize cosmic effects that are inherently natural in the plasma universe and have no other cause for them, so that in denial of the natural cause, which is deemed not to exist, exotic dreams are invented to rationalize the observed effects without science having to acknowledge their actual cause. This trap creates the paradox. But why would one need to resort to dreaming impossible dreams when rational solutions are at hand that solve all these paradoxes? Cosmic plasma, by being motivated with the electromagnetic force that is 39 orders of magnitude stronger than gravity and has an infinite range, has the potential to cause all the types of phenomena that have been observed, from gamma ray light effects, pulsing and otherwise, all the way to the theorized ripples in the plenum of space that have been observed by the LIGO and Virgo observatories. Why doesn't humanity step out of this long-cherished constricting box of its impossible, convoluted dreaming, and look at the real universe, where the observed effects in the universe are inherently possible as simple plasma flow phenomena? By stepping out of the box of mythical science dreaming, the paradoxes of the neutron stars become resolved, including the paradox of the supermassive black hole stars that are imagined to exist at the center of galaxies. Even the theorized supermassive black holes that are deemed to be located at the center of a galaxy, which have been theorized by patterns of stars orbiting around them, are nothing more than large-scale plasma events. No neutron star magic is needed to cause the effects that have been observed. The existence of a supermassive black hole has been deduced from the orbits of stars around a center that is not visible. A supermassive black hole is deemed to exist there, that contains 4 million times the mass of our Sun. Is this too sheer fantasy? No, it isn't. It is a plasma effect. The observed orbits are real. The pattern shown here has been extrapolated from partial observations over a lengthy period of time. The pattern is consistent with a large central mass at the gravitational center for the orbit. But what causes the effect that has been observed when supermassive neutron stars are not a physical possibility? The answer is that the observed effects of large central mass was simply caused by a highly concentrated stream of plasma occurring on the massive galactic scale. Wouldn't one expect to see large concentrations of plasma flowing through the center of a galaxy, as shown here in the pioneering Alphen model, and to flow from this center into the spiral arms to power the galaxy's many billions of stars? As researchers have discovered, plasma streams can be magnetically compressed by their electric motion into densely concentrated streams. Since plasma can be far more compressed magnetically than atomic matter can be compressed, it is not unreasonable to assume that a galactic plasma stream that is a mere 100 times as wide as our Sun is, can potentially carry a stream of mass that's 4 million times larger than the total mass of the Sun. Such a plasma stream would actually be a relatively small stream in cosmic terms. Far greater plasma densities can be achieved on the galactic scale than we dare to imagine, where the galaxy itself is but a node point on the axis of intergalactic plasma streams. The plasma concentration is so massive at the galactic center that the confinement domes at the galactic node points, where plasma is concentrated, extend for 25,000 light-years above and below the galactic disk. The existence of these large confinement domes over the center of our galaxy has only recently been discovered. This means that what we see, both measured in space and replicated in the laboratory, proves ever more the existence of the plasma universe and its principles for operation, for which the imagined supermassive black holes are simply not required. It is not surprising by what we have seen that wherever one ventures off the path of the real, where plasma is a factor, one ends up with super ecstatic dreams that become conjured up to imagine gravitational effects for the observed phenomena, which aren't really possible. One such case is the Cygnus X1 binary star system, located 6,070 light-years distant. The Cygnus X1 system is a well-known galactic X-ray source that is widely regarded to incorporate a black hole that is deemed to generate X-ray emissions. It is theorized that the stellar wind from a supergiant star is drawn to the black hole, where its atomic material accumulates into an accretion disk. It is further theorized that the inner region of the disk is heated to millions of degrees by the gravitational effect of the black hole. It is theorized still further that in the process of the black sun's gravity tearing at the atomic structures, tearing them apart at the innermost region of the accretion disk, a vast flood of X-ray light is emitted. A pair of jets is deemed to be emitted perpendicular to the disk by magnetic fields that are deemed to be carrying the captured energy and torn-up materials away into interstellar space against the force of the black hole's gravity. The result is a finely spun tale, though again an impossible tale for all the reasons previously discussed, except one. The theorized accretion disk around the black hole is not possible. Accretion disks are electrically organized structures. From the orbits of the planets to the rings of Saturn to the disk of the galaxy itself, in every case, we look at electrically organized features, not features of gravity. An electrically inert, gravity-only star cannot produce the features illustrated here, except in dreams. However, in the plasma universe, a much simpler picture comes into view for what has been observed about the Cygnus X1 system. We see a giant star, 20 times as wide as our Sun, and 300,000 times more luminous. We see it powered by an equivalently large sphere of plasma focused on it by correspondingly large primal fields. In the sphere of the dense plasma focused around the large Sun, we see a secondary star orbiting in close proximity, perhaps as close as half the distance of the orbit of Mercury to the Sun. The close relationship means that we see the secondary star deeply immersed within the sphere of the concentrated plasma that powers the large star. Within the all-enveloping dense plasma environment, the secondary star would have its own primal fields that focus a still more concentrated shell of plasma around it, that support the type of super-intense solar activities that can create a surface temperature in the range of millions of degrees. The solar action of the big secondary star would be so intense that the star's emission spectrum would be shifted upwards into the high-energy bands, way past the UV band into the hard X-ray band. The extreme energy emissions takes the resulting spectrum far outside the visible band. The intense star would appear as a black sun that is only visible in X-ray light, where it is seen bright and clear. In the plasma universe, no accretion disk is needed to cause the observed phenomenon. No mystical black hole is needed either. No supernormal phenomenon is required. Cygnus X1 is simply a binary star system operating in a dense plasma environment, with the visible star having a measured surface temperature of 31,000 degrees. Its super-intense companion will most likely be powered up to many millions of degrees. No magic is needed for this, for the emission of X-ray light. Thus, the Cygnus X1 system stands actually as a fine example of evidence for the plasma universe. Now what about the illustrated conical jets above the hyperactive black sun? They are evidently not jet streams at all. Jet streams are not conical. What is illustrated here is the plasma structure of the hyperactive star's primal fields, of the type that has been replicated at the Los Alamos National Laboratory with high-energy plasma physics experiments. The so-called jet streams are simply plasma phenomena on a small scale comparable to the plasma features on the galactic scale that NASA has photographed, extending from the center of our galaxy, below and above the galactic disk, for up to 25,000 light-years. These features that NASA has discovered do likewise emit light in the X-ray band and even in the gamma-ray light band. Both light bands have been detected in the Cygnus X1 system. As I said earlier, the discovered plasma domes over our galaxy are nothing more in principle than the confinement domes of the primal field structures that focus plasma onto our galaxy from intergalactic plasma streams. It would be surprising if we didn't see this principle expressed in the Cygnus X1 system, associated with the hyper-intense star. Nothing exotic is happening in both cases. What about star explosions then? Are they real? Supernova events, of course, are real. Although supernova events happen, they are quite rare. Nevertheless, they cannot be the result of stars exploding. The gas-sun theory imagines stars running out of fuel, which causes them to collapse and in some cases explode in the supernova cosmic fireworks. The largest ever recorded supernova event shone with a luminosity of 500 billion stars. Still, these supergiant events are evidently not star explosions. Stars are spheres of plasma. Consequently, they cannot explode. There is no energy contained within a sphere of plasma that would cause an explosion to happen. However, it is possible that a wayward planet becomes caught up into the plasma stream that feeds into a sun. If this was to happen, when the speeding planet rams into the high-density plasma region of the confinement dome of the star's primal fields, and perhaps even rams into the star itself, the plasma interaction would rip the intruding planet's atomic structures apart and release the invested binding energy. The intruder's atoms would simply fission. The entire planet would vaporize into a cloud of dust and gas, with a portion of its atoms fissioning in an atomic explosion that makes the concept of gigantic seem small. The resulting atomic explosion would light up the region of the explosion with a brilliance of a billion suns. In a nuclear bomb explosion, only a few grams of the fissional atomic material is actually consumed, with the amounts measured in grams. When an entire planet fissions, and fissions almost completely, the result is correspondingly larger. A supernova event is an atomic bomb explosion, with the bomb being the size of a planet. The supernova is no more exotic than that. In most cases, the planetary nuclear explosion blows the associated star apart that has triggered the explosion. By themselves, stars cannot explode. If a giant star would die, for which no evidence exists, it would die by electron depletion. Its plasma would then simply disperse. The star would in effect vanish as if it had never existed. Only structures that consist of atomic materials can explode. We may have seen an extremely tiny equivalent event in the form of a captured asteroid exploding over the North Pole of our Sun on the 21st of July in 2014. Something had exploded there in the plasma corona, almost touching the Sun. The bottom line is that while the giant supernova events have always occurred and will continue to occur, our perception of them has evolved, of the principles that cause them, and it continues to evolve. We are able to see the supernova events with a different perspective now in the plasma universe. The universe is a puzzle when it is seen from inside of the box of the constricted science that is blinded by its doctrine that 99.999% of the universe, which is plasma, does not exist. The universe becomes a puzzle in that box, where everything that exists must be reduced to effects of gravity and mass. Thus, in the constricted box, the theory was forged that everything that exists, including the universe itself, has originated in a giant explosion 13 billion years ago, which is deemed to be still expanding across cosmic space. The theory of the primordial explosion is largely built on the fact that light from distant galaxies appears to be shifted towards the red end of the light spectrum. It is theorized that the red shift is proof that the distant galaxies are racing away from us, whereby the light that is generated there appears stretched out. This too adds up to be a finely spun tale, but it has no truth standing behind it, nor any visible evidence. When an explosion occurs, the exploding material typically expands outward, leaving in its wake an empty center. No evidence for this empty center exists in cosmic space, but the redshift hints at an expanding periphery. The universe as we know it lacks all the essential features that one would expect to see for a primordial explosion to have happened, except for that mythical redshift. Actually, the redshift doesn't prove anything either, because it isn't what it appears to be. It doesn't prove that distant objects are racing away from us. The redshift is nothing more than the result of simple energy depletion in light being propagated over long distances for many millions of years. When the photons of light cross vast distances of cosmic space that is pervaded with networks of intergalactic plasma streams, a portion of the photon's original energy becomes dissipated along the way. It would be surprising if this wouldn't be the case. But what happens when a photon's energy is diminished? Its physical size expands in this case. High-energy photons are more tightly packed packages than low-energy packages. The size of the package determines their propagation wavelengths. Thus, when the violet photon loses energy on the path of propagation, it becomes a blue photon. The blue photon becomes a green photon. The green becomes yellow, the yellow brown, the brown red, and the red shifts outside the visible spectrum. The entire spectrum shifts towards the red over long distances of propagation. The redshift thereby becomes a proxy for distance. Light waves cannot be stretched by the speed of the transmitter, because light is not an energy wave, like sound is. Light is a stream of discrete electromagnetic packages. All this means that plasma physics proves that no Big Bang explosion has ever occurred. It proves the Big Bang theory to be merely a dream. It thereby proves, too, that the universe is not winding down, as it would after an explosion, but is instead self-sustaining and self-expanding with its lifeblood, that is plasma, which, according to the plenum theory, is drawn from cosmic space itself. Plasma appears to have its origin in the explicit order of the latent energy background of space, theorized by David Bohm, whom Einstein is said to have referred to as his successor. David Bohm is the American scientist who became known as one of the most significant theoretical physicists of the 20th century. Bohm considers that what we call reality is actually a complex of surface phenomena, explicate forms that have temporarily unfolded out of an underlying implicate order. A faint expression of the implicate and explicate may be found when electrons become transmuted to an energy wave in the orbital space of an atomic structure and then rematerialize at different points. It can be assumed on this basis that space is not empty, but is a plenum of energy with numerous types of explicate phenomena that materialize as plasma particles in response to an implicate order. All this means that the Big Bang theory, for which no real evidence exists, is not essential for theorizing the existence of the universe. The explicit theory of constantly unfolding plasma that is evident in the plasma-centered anti-entropic nature of the universe presents itself as a far more rational concept for theorizing the nature of the universe than a primordial explosion. The bottom line is that the more we advance scientifically, the more we leave the historic dreamscapes behind us and find consistent evidence in what we discover, which increasingly invalidates the dream landscapes. What we have explored so far means that we have come a long way away from the historic flat earth doctrine, and from the doctrine of the epicycles, and even from the doctrines that gravity and mass alone express the laws of cosmic phenomena. We have built ourselves up scientifically, with the profound recognition of the plasma universe that is now dawning, which all the discovered evidence relates to for cosmic phenomena that have been observed in the past, but which had been shrouded with exotic, dreamlike perceptions. The train of progress, sadly, has become snared to a halt by the still lingering doctrine that all cosmic phenomena must be related to mass, gravity, and gravitational interactions alone. This continuing trap, a mental trap, still forces the exclusion of 99.999% of the mass of the universe that exists as plasma from almost all science considerations in cosmology, as if plasma didn't exist. The resulting trap is so rich with inventions of exotic epicycle theories that it has kept the eyes and minds of humanity closed for far too long to what is actually happening. While the breakout from the entrapment of cosmology appears to have begun, it remains still largely at the beginning stage. The progress that is happening dangerously slow. The constricting trap of boxed-in science is dangerous because it continues to block society's recognition of the start of the next ice age in the 2050s and the resulting immense consequences. We cannot afford this danger. Unless the science stranglehold is overcome soon and fast, most of humanity is destined to perish when the world ship planet Earth sinks back into its normal Ice Age glaciation epoch without lifeboats for humanity having been built and standing ready in the form of large-scale infrastructures created in the tropics, where life is able to continue for the next 90,000 years of the coming harsh glacial times under a dimmer and cooler sun. We need the breakout from the stranglehold of science to accelerate, to enable us to start the building of the needed infrastructures for relocating all of us from outside the tropics into the tropics before the coming ice age begins. If we wait before we react till the regions outside the tropics become uninhabitable, we will have waited too long. The Ice Age transition will not wait for us. It will happen faster than we can react to it. But why would we wait? The building of the Ice Age infrastructure is so large a task that the process of building the needed projects all by itself promises to usher in a new industrial revolution with an economic, political, and cultural uplift that ushers in the greatest renaissance ever experienced and ever imagined. That's what we see today on the horizon, but will we reach for it? The question of will we reach for it cannot be answered until the science stranglehold is broken that keeps us locked into dreaming. In the modern convoluted dreaming, much of humanity dreams of the world as an unsinkable ship. People dream that the current interglacial warm period will never end. Humanity is presently dreaming like little children do, of fairy tales, pirate adventures, and sky castles, and hope in their dreaming that they will never grow up to having to face reality. But maybe a few of the pioneers have already come to the conclusion that they want to grow up, and are ponderous of how this might be accomplished. Indeed, how can anyone grow up when the box of science is so empty that 99.999% of the universe is left outside of the box of science considerations? When the most fascist empire in the world sits on the lid that makes it almost impossible for one to pry the lid open. I want to grow up, some may realize, because I want to see the world how it really is. I find the world too dark inside the closed box. I find it so dark there that I can no longer see myself as a human being. I want to break out of the box. Inside the dark box of constricted science, the whole of humanity is politically defined as a cancer on the earth that is destroying the planet. In this box of dense mental pollution, everyone has his soul ripped out and the future denied. Society has become smothered in the box with ever more doctrines that are self-evident lies, but which have forced society to become fascist murderers of one another. Society is now murdering upwards to 100 million people a year with the biofuels scam. This adds up to an infinite crime. The crime demands the mass burning of high-value food at a volume that would normally nourish 400 million people. The world is lulled into a dangerous dream on this path towards losing itself, and with it, its future. The age of fascist dreaming of the type of the biofuels scam should have ended long ago, before the present stage. With the dense indifference that we now see, we, society as a whole, are enabling the greatest holocaust of all times against us, willingly, without a whimper, without even raising an eyebrow, and without the slightest remorse. Hitler would envy us for our advanced achievement in relentless self-murdering, and would bestow us the great Nazi gold medal for excellence in fascism. What kind of people have we become? We even lie about the sun, and lie so shamelessly that we blind ourselves against the dynamics of the coming ice age, so that our hands remain tied into impotence at the time of the greatest challenge to civilization, with ourselves tied up so tightly that we cannot find it within us to prepare our world, our home, for the deep glaciation that awaits us in the near future. The evidence for it is all around us. The plasma universe is full of it. The evidence tells us that the next big ice age will begin in the 2050s or sooner. It tells us we better get prepared to get the fur coats out of the closet. But much of humanity answers nay. We are at a stage of a mother saying to her child, "A storm is coming, the clouds are black, you better wear your tight hoodies going to school." We are the child that says nay. When the child returns from school, it is drenched to the skin. In the illustrated case, the consequences are minute. But when society says nay to the Ice Age challenge, the consequences promise to be fatal for most of humanity. That's the fate that follows scientific blindness. On the present universal stage of self-induced scientific blindness, nearly the whole of humanity says nay in great choruses, and is thereby condemning itself to perish in a wave of starvation that most certainly erupts when the present agriculture across the world fails and no replacement has been created. Thus we gamble with the very existence of the whole of humanity, in a wager saying nay to the truth that the ship is sinkable and is already sinking. Saying nay to what we already know is a wager that we are bound to lose, according to all the evidence before us. We are presently committed to riding the fast train of indifference to its bitter end, with the song of nay on our lips, speeding towards the greatest change on our planet since civilization began, which leaves nothing the same, by which the most unimaginable becomes reality. Still, we have the option open to us to get off the train. But we don't do it. We say nay, 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 nay. And for what? We thus say nay to having a future, which reveals a deep lack of universal love for one another and for our humanity, the humanity that we all share. We say nay to that. We are committed on the train of indifference to the kind of extreme fascism for which Hitler would have surely awarded us in our modern age his most supreme star in honor of a people who are committed to murder their future. Hitler would praise us for our commitment to sweeping the Ice Age challenge under the rug, for us singing the song of nay that denies us the liberty of responding to the heart of our humanity. Is there no one standing in the hustings committed to protect human existence in the face of the greatest challenge in the history of civilization? There may be a few, no doubt. The numbers are small. On this path, humanity is lost, and its future with it. Will the past be reversed? Will we find sufficient support for one another, inspired by love, creating security? This remains an open question. The constricting box of science that the world hails offers no support. It is so empty of anything real that we dream screwed-up dreams in which magic rules and black fantasy develops in devastating ideals that destroy the most precious that we have, which is our humanity and one another. Indeed, how can the box of science not be empty when wherever we look, we see 99.999% of the mass of the universe banned from considerations, simply because it is plasma, and plasma is deemed too complex for us little people to wrap our mind around and comprehend, even though the entire universe is organized by it and is powered by it. How can we liberate us from this constricting box that's rich with narrow-minded arrogance and lies about the universe that some segments of the scientific community had once refused to swallow, but which many now hail? Society hails the box of learned ignorance, and hides within it from the greatest challenge in the history of all time, the Ice Age challenge, a challenge by the universe, a challenge to wake up and build ourselves a new platform for continued living on the now fast transforming earth where nothing will remain the same as it is today in 30 years, for which the transition has already begun. The world ship is already sinking. The solar atmosphere is getting weaker. The sunspot cycles are diminishing. The solar wind pressure is diminishing. The coronal holes are getting bigger. Solar cosmic ray flux is increasing. Cloudiness is increasing. The earth is getting colder. Droughts are increasing. The northern magnetic pole deflection is diminishing. The Ice Age transition is a single cosmic event with many effects. It's happening. It's time to wake up to it. This means that we need to ask us how long we intend to wait till we take the lid off the constricting box of science and banish the ass of empire that sits on the lid as Mozart had suggested in Figaro. Growing up is life-critical. If we remain asleep in the constricting box and meet the Ice Age challenge unprepared, we will all die in our sleep. But I don't think this will happen, because being awake is wonderful. It is natural for humanity to be awake and live with open eyes. I really do want to wake up, a child may say. But how can I grow up when majority means ignorance, as society doesn't allow itself to see the real world and to see itself as human beings? Do I want to grow up to a world of science that is blinded with epicycles, where nothing is real, in a world of politics where stealing and murdering is legal and where wars shred the human soul, economics create poverty, and religion closes the mind? Society has the power to grow up itself as a whole and to begin to shower one another with love instead of with lies and bullets and with poverty and bombs. I think that we all have this power. We are the leaders on this front of the human adventure. Today the field may be largely empty. Tomorrow we may stop the dreaming and start to build us the greatest renaissance of all time, in which the worst ice age can have no sting. Let me tell you a secret then. Let me tell you my secret. I have discovered that when I dare to stop dreaming, I'm shocked to realize that dreaming is far from being wonderful, that it makes the world too small and blocks the real big wonders that only begin when the dreaming ends. Is this a step in growing up?